Hello and welcome to all the Gold viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and one of the MCs here at Gold, and I'm chatting today with Emma Pickett. Welcome, Emma. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me, Kristen. Very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Emma, you are one of our speakers for the upcoming GOLD Lactation Online Conference here of 2022. That's just around the corner, really just we get started on April 4th. But before we come into or get into the role you play there, your presentation, I want to first introduce you a little bit to our viewers. Tell us, first of all, Emma, where in the world are you located?
So I am in North London, in a neighbourhood called Muswell Hill, if that means anything to you, in the borough of Haringey in North London.
Beautiful. So we have almost, well, it's towards the end of, mid today is actually the middle of March. What is it like in your area right now for our viewers around the world who might not be living where you are?
Yeah, so London is, in terms of weather or in terms of
a little bit about everything.
Life.
Yeah.
Okay, so like most places, we're dealing with COVID. We've got a resurgence happening at the moment in the UK, so our figures are going back up. We have rain and mud. We have, but you know, we're okay. We're good. We're good. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I know other places in the world have more to worry about than we do, so I can't complain.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about your background. You're an IBCLC. You have written some books, but first of all, tell us a little bit of your professional journey here.
Yeah, so I started life actually as a teacher, as a primary school teacher in London. And then when I had my own children, I don't think this is an original story. I think this is a story of many breastfeeding supporters. I had my own child, trained as a peer supporter. And when you start reading about breastfeeding, you quite often don't stop. So then became a breastfeeding counsellor and volunteered on the National Breastfeeding Helpline, and then carried on training, became an IBCLC in 2011. And recertified in 2016 and 2021. I took my exam last year, hopefully the last time I'll have to take that. And yeah, so I've been doing breastfeeding support since 2007-ish. And yeah, volunteering in Haringey for 14, 15 years. And yeah, IBCLC for just over 11 years.
Beautiful. And you're an author. You have written now your third book is coming out very soon. I have actually two of them here. The first one I want to introduce is the Breast Book. And this is a puberty guide with a difference. It's the when, why, and how of breasts. And I'm going to show this here. So tell us a little bit about this wonderful book. I had a little sneak peek here looking at it. I absolutely love it. Let us know a little bit about it. And is it because of your background as a teacher that this became of interest to you?
Yeah, so it's the kind of two worlds came together really. So when I was teaching, I taught that older age range in primary school. So those are kind of the 10, 11-year-olds. I did a lot of sex education, which is now called relationships and other kinds of education. And I was aware that a lot of the resources are out there about puberty. You know, breasts get half a page if they're lucky. You know, something about bras, maybe a quick reference to feeding babies, but so little information. And, you know, like most people in breastfeeding support, I meet women who don't know anything about their own bodies, you know, don't even know what names to use to describe parts of their body. So I really wanted the kind of book that I would like my own daughter to read, that I would have liked to have read when I was a teenager, that really gives you the full story on breasts. That's all it's about. And it's about, you know, the development and breastfeeding and the social context around breasts as well. Things like the decision to wear a bra, things about, you know, sort of social pressures to look a certain way. So it's a dialogue about body image, but it's not just about breastfeeding. But breastfeeding is obviously a big element, because I want people to come away from the book looking forward to breastfeeding, feeling excited to live in a world where breastfeeding is a possibility. And that was definitely the motivation for the book.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that it's in there, because I keep always thinking, why isn't this taught more in schools, right? Why don't we learn more about this? You know, as you mentioned, in education, it's half a page about breasts in, you know, at whatever education there is in schools for kids nowadays, and barely any mention of breastfeeding. Yeah, it's just mentioned, but like, so if we normalize it, if we bring it up, if we make it something part of the education, might be so much easier for then later on if if families are then expecting their own children, and this becomes just a natural thing to do instead
Yeah,
of
that's the
going through all
aim.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is actually on the curriculum in Scotland.
Hmm.
It is actually part of the national
Great.
curriculum in Scotland, not in England,
Not in England.
and lots of other countries not mentioned at all. So yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully that the book fills a bit of a gap.
Beautiful. And then I have also your second book here. It's also a beautiful book. I love how it is designed and the illustrations there. How have you've got it in you, a positive guide to breastfeeding as well here. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so that was actually the first book I wrote. It's actually
Hmm.
it's just a really basic introduction. I wrote it fairly early on in my lactation consultant career, and it was just kind of the things that I would like people to know. So it's just the book that someone might read in pregnancy or someone might read in the early days, and it's meant to be quite an easy read. It's meant to be quite sort of conversational. It kind of goes through chronologically, and then problems towards the end that people might come up against. But yeah, it's not very long. It's 99p if you buy it as an ebook, so it doesn't have to be
Right.
expensive. It's just your kind of introduction. I know there are books out there that are a lot more comprehensive, but that's my kind of introduction.
Exactly, and I love it because it is a nice little book, so it's a great resource for our clients, our families we encounter, because it is kind of handy. Because let's face it, in pregnancy there are so many books to comb through or courses to take, and it's good to have something comprehensive and short and relatively easy to understand, right? And then if like after you mentioned your own journey there, if somebody is really fascinated and interested about the topic, then they can continue, of course, their journey of becoming a lactation professional, just like you, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's talk also about the presentation that's coming up here that you have with us here, working with families feeding beyond 12 months, offering support with confidence. So let us know give us a little overview of what we can look forward to.
Yeah, so I think lots of people that work in the world of breastfeeding support do focus a lot on the early days and the early weeks of breastfeeding. Inevitably, those are the people that really need help. But there are increasingly families continuing beyond 12 months. I mean, obviously around the world, there are countries where there have always been people breastfeeding older children. But I think perhaps more so in some of the Western industrialized countries, we're seeing more and more people continue to breastfeed. And they need help and they're not always able to find it. And if you're a health professional and you've done the standard training, you may not have had a lot of experience in supporting with older children. Things like positioning and attachment issues that arise with much older babies and much older toddlers. There are particular things that come up that aren't going to come up at any other time. Things like tandem feeding, breastfeeding through pregnancy, dealing with the breakdown of the family relationship, looking at the continuation of solids alongside breastfeeding, looking at sleep for older children alongside breastfeeding. So there are conversations that do come up in this older children bracket that not everyone necessarily has experience of in their training. So I mean, I'm not pretending that I'm the world's expert on this, but I do spend a lot of time talking to people continuing to breastfeed and also supporting people who are finishing breastfeeding, which is also an area where people often don't get support. So I just wanted to give an hour just to help someone who perhaps hasn't had a lot of experience, hasn't had a lot of training, just to come away with an understanding of what will crop up. Because actually the people breastfeeding older children are also the people who breastfeed newborns. So you can't live in the world of breastfeeding support and not come across someone breastfeeding an older child. So I think we all need to feel that confidence to be able to support them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And Emma, before I let you go, any last words for us here? Maybe any tip or advice you can give us before I let you go?
Gosh, what in life or just in
for the topic here for the 12
yeah
months,
so
yes.
I think so one of the things I will be asking people to do is reflect a little bit on our biases, that we all have biases. Most of us have grown up in cultures where breastfeeding older children isn't entirely recommended or isn't comfortable, and we think we've resolved all those biases, but it's good every now and again to remind ourselves that we maybe still have some work to do. So I'll be asking people to do that in the presentation as well.
Oh, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time here, Emma, and chatting with us here about the wonderful work you're doing, your books, and of course the presentations that you have here with us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And for our viewers, if you are interested to learn more about this presentation here with Emma, you can go to goldlactation.com to find out more. And also you will find more information about all the other presentations in the conference. And don't forget, we get started April 4th. All the presentations are live, but they're also recorded. So if you cannot be there live, the presentations will be there for you to view at your convenience, of course. And I hope to see everyone at the conference. Bye-bye, everyone.